Live from downtown Lansing, you're listening to The Spartan Beat with your hosts, Corey Robinson and Justin Thin.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of The Spartan Beat. I'm Justin Thin. I'm here with my co-host, Corey Robinson. And today we have an extra special guest joining us today, and that is former Michigan State star linebacker and NFL vet of 9 years, Ike Reese. Ike, how you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
I'm great, Justin. Corey, how you guys doing, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're definitely, as soon as we got the show, you were definitely one of the first ones I wanted just because you were one of my favorite players growing up. So I wanted to thank you for coming on. But to get it started, can you kind of talk about your time at Michigan State, what made them the school for you out of all the choices you had?
Well, you know what? The funny thing is I didn't have a ton of choices. I did not have a ton of choices coming out of high school. I had the opportunity to go to Michigan State. I had the opportunity to stay home and go to University of Cincinnati. And I had the opportunity to go to Ball State University. That was my high school coach's college. So they offered me. And then I was waiting for a kid to decide if he was going to take a scholarship from the University of Illinois for them to decide if they were going to offer me a scholarship. So those were the only choices I had right there. And I will tell you this, they all sort of pulled at me in a different way, right? You know, at University of Illinois, I had a high school teammate that was there and a kid that was from Cincinnati that we played against in high school that I was close with. So they were pulling me to come there. And with my high school coach going to Ball State, I certainly was interested in going there. And obviously staying at home was on the list of that possibility. But Michigan State, because I didn't really have – it was something about when I came there to visit and being around the players that weekend that it just felt like home. It just felt like, being around my brothers or being around my cousins or what have you. It just felt natural being around those guys, those older guys, the Myron Bell, Bryce Abrams, Juan Hammonds, who was my host on that trip, and a host of other guys, including a couple guys that were from Cincinnati. Robert Perles, who had played safety, was a year ahead of me, who I had played in high school. And the funny thing about my connection to Robert Perles is that's how I actually got seen. The coach that recruited me, Chip Waddell, was actually there to see Robert Perles and a few other players on that team that they were interested in bringing to Michigan State. And I just happened to have a good game against that team, and I called Coach. I happened to catch Coach Waddell's eye in that game, and that's how I started to get recruited to Michigan State. And committing there, it almost just seemed like a natural thing to do, and it seemed like like that was the place. So much so that I didn't even take the visits to the other schools. I Michigan State was the first school I visited, and I committed that weekend, and I didn't take the trips to the other schools. Now, that didn't make some of those coaches happy, including the coach from Cincinnati who was recruiting me, John Harbaugh. Wow. Yeah, the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens right now. That's who was recruiting me in high school, and he and I were real close. And he was not happy that I had committed to Michigan State. So that's a story. I mean, a situation that he and I laughed about years and years down the road as he coached me here in Philadelphia as well for 7 years. So it just felt natural, and that's the best thing I can say, because it wasn't as if I put it against the other schools.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to visit the other schools. So, I was like, yeah, I'm here at Michigan State, and it had to be the Big Ten. So it had to be the Big Ten because, being a Midwest kid, the Big Ten is where it's at. To me, it's the best football. It's the football I grew up on. It's the football I knew.
Right. And that's a great story for sure. And one thing about Michigan State is we will happily take all the under-recruited Ohio guys and put them in the league. That's one thing that Michigan State will always be willing to do.
Yeah, and as an Ohio kid, believe me, we don't let the other kids forget that. That's, as high school kids, when we coming from all different areas of the country to be on one team, the only thing we have is bragging rights is either how good we were in high school as individuals, which all of us had to be to some degree, or how many kids from our area are good. And so when you looked at the Michigan State teams during that time, man, we've always had a pipeline into Ohio. So including Dixon Edwards, that's whose high school I went to, and his father was the assistant principal at my high school, and always talked to me about Dixon Edwards. So that was also another reason why Michigan State was kind of like the favorite school for me to go to, because Dixon Edwards Sr. had been in my ear for like 2 years about Michigan State and his son. Yeah.
Yeah, he was another one of the great linebackers here.
Yep.
So you played for George Perles at the beginning, and then switched over to Nick Saban for the last couple years, I believe. So what was it like kind of playing for Perles, and what was he like? And then what was that transition over that really stuck out that was different about Nick Saban after he arrived and took over?
Yeah, well, and both of these coaches obviously a significant place in developing me as a player and as a young man into a man. But obviously Coach Perles, being the head coach that gave me the scholarship and offered me the scholarship, I'll forever be indebted to him, and God rest his soul, and for his family. He was a legend. Like I said, growing up watching Big Ten football, I remember watching the '88 Rose Bowl against USC. Being a Ohio kid, the Rose Bowl has always been the granddaddy of them all. And so that was my first sort of picture into my introduction to Michigan State, and watching Lorenzo White run up and down the field, and Andre Rison out there on the field, and Percy Snow, and Tony Manders. It was just so many of those guys. And then having Coach Perles, I just remember when I sat in his office, he's that father figure, and that the tough love that he gave you. I really believe helped make me a football player that could persevere and overcome and really be an overachiever. That's the one thing that he liked about the players that came to Michigan State. He always felt like he was recruiting players with the DNA of a fight and a dog in them. That's what the term Spartan dog sort of comes from, and that's the type of players that Coach Perles sort of recruited. So him recognizing that was very significant to me in my early stages. And then playing for Coach Saban, first of all, with Coach Perles, I always felt like I didn't get to reward him for giving me a scholarship because he got fired. But I do remember him believing in me, and he and Coach Buller, Hank Buller, who was our defensive coordinator, they really gave me the confidence that I could play. Being a small guy, and in the Big Ten, I always felt I was tough. It wasn't as if I was going to back down, but part of me said, man, I don't know if I'll be able to last physically against the size of some of these guys in the Big Ten, but they always told me I had that ability, and they pulled it out of me. So I always felt like if they didn't have the influence on me that they did early in my career, I would have never developed the way that I did under Coach Saban. And with Coach, Coach brought, I believe, just my level of, football acumen up, right? I really started to understand the game of football under Coach Saban and why you do things in a defense and why it's important that you play defense on the string, meaning what the defensive line does in front of you applies to what the linebacker's responsibilities are, which also supports what the secondary is supposed to be doing and their responsibilities. And if you understand what everybody is doing, then it makes the defense easier for you and you can play faster. And it took me a couple years to get that, but by my senior year, I was ready to roll. And but those other years playing under me was just playing sheer athleticism and heart. But by the time I got to my senior year, he made me a finished product. And, I know I never would have played in the NFL without him as my coach. Just being able to learn the game under him and Dean Pease. Dean Pease as our defensive coordinator there was also significant in my development as a player. So I just feel fortunate having played for some of the best football minds that the game has ever seen. So, sometimes I have to remind myself that, dude, you played for the greatest college football coach ever. You played for the greatest college football coach ever in his infancy stages. Yeah. So, it wasn't as if, in Alabama, it's kind of easy to go play for Coach Saban in Alabama, but at Michigan State coming there, it meant something. And I always think, that could have been us. And I believe he could have did that at Michigan State. And I think that was important what he did for us with the school, even bringing Coach D'Antonio there, who I also played under for 3 years there.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You have quite the pedigree of who you played under for sure. And kind of touching a little more on your MSU days, what is a singular memory of your years at MSU that always sticks with you? That's the first thing in your mind when you think about your tenure there.
Oh, beating Michigan in 1995. 1995. Touchdown, Nigeria Carter. Yes, it's one of the best games in the rivalry of that school. So that, to me, I always felt like that was my signature game that I was a part of, right? We had some other nice wins, my senior year, beating Notre Dame and beating Penn State for the first time. So I was able to do that as a senior, and going out on senior day, beating Penn State. I believe they were the number 2 or either number 3 team in the country at that time. And, watching Mark Renard and Cedric Irvin both rush for 200 yards and us just really be able to relax and enjoy that game because the offense carried us in that game. That was a great one. But that 95 Michigan game will always be my number one game for me there. It's just I played with some great guys in that game. Tony Banks, Derek Mason, Reggie Garnett, Nigeria Carter, Musin Muhammad, playing with all those guys, Scotty Green, playing with all those guys. We had some talent on that team. So, and beating that team in that fashion, that was pretty good. I literally, talking about it or thinking about it right now, I still can see the snow flurries coming down and I can feel the chill that was there that evening. That was a great game to be a part of.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's a vivid memory for you to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So just, I guess, kind of putting a bow on your time at MSU, what would you say that those years really did for you for life after football? How exactly were they formative for just life in general, even beyond football?
I just think that's where I grew up and really gained the confidence to be the person that I would daydream about being, right? And whether it was playing in the NFL one day or, hosting a TV show or being a TV analyst, all those things that me and my roommate would think about and talk about at night there, they eventually came to fruition. And after the time I left Michigan State, but I don't believe if I don't have those years there, the tough times, and I appreciated all of them, the good times and the bad times. I appreciated being able to go from a coaching change from George Perles to Nick Saban and understanding that helped me in my first 2 years in the NFL as my head coach, Ray Rhodes, got fired after my rookie year, and I wound up playing for Andy Reid for 6 years after that. So, but having that ability to deal with adjusting and adapting I learned that firsthand there. And then obviously just being in a major program, I had the exposure that I needed that would help me be able to have the confidence to do what I do now. So I've always felt comfortable in front of a camera. I've always felt comfortable behind the microphone, but all that stuff started there. And so getting that exposure and that experience helped me be able to have the post-career that I have has 13 years since I retired.
Right.
So
definitely. So kind of fast forwarding to the present day, as far as that goes with Michigan State and you, what's your early thoughts on Mel Tucker and the job he's done and the vision he has for the program? And I mean, obviously it's not been ideal with June 1st is finally, recruits will be on campus, but just what's your early thoughts on him?
I got to tell you, and the funny thing is, Mel Tucker was there as a GA my senior year.
Yeah. So,
me and Mel, we know each other from those days as well, and crossed paths during some of his time in the NFL as a coach also. I'm thoroughly impressed. I was happy when he got the job. I think he's going to do a wonderful job there. Getting the program back to where, Coach D'Antonio's had it for the last, 10, 15 years, to where, I just believe that it's been a tough situation for him. You can't come into a program that went through the tough ending the way it ended with Coach D'Antonio and had to deal with COVID and not being able to recruit and see kids and bring kids on your campus and let them see how wonderful it is to be at Michigan State during the summers or in the fall when it's a packed stadium. Like, all those things are difficult to have to navigate through, and I thought he did as best he could last year under the circumstances, and it seems like he's off to a good start this spring with stuff. I've been a part of some different Zoom calls with him this offseason, so I love the fact that he has maintained the importance and significance of keeping the alumni involved and being a part of that, because I thought that was something that Coach D'Antonio had done that wasn't done under John L. Smith, and a lot of us certainly appreciated the way Coach D'Antonio moved things in the right direction. And I think Mel's going to continue to do that. He has to get players. He's going to continue to do that. I'm getting adjusted to college football and the new way of doing things with the transfer portal, losing players and gaining players. It's like free agency in college football,
Right.
And I know it's a good thing for the players to a degree, because I understand. Listen, if you got the ability to better your chances of advancing your football career, coaches do it all the time. I don't mind players doing it, but there's a part of me that says, man, are we teaching kids to compete and fight for jobs and remain committed to something they committed to? But I get it. Like I said, I'm learning how to accept it and embrace it. And we can benefit from it. And it seems like they've gotten some kids to come there through the portal. So I'm excited and anxious to see what the season is going to look like this year. I got a chance to watch the spring game. They did it the best as they could under the circumstances. So, but I'm excited to see the future, to see what the future holds for the school with Mel leading the way.
Yeah, and then to kind of piggyback off of that, how you were talking about his involvement of the former players. From my perspective, I've noticed a large surge of a lot of the former players that were here maybe pre-D'Antonio and some of the other ones. I feel like you're seeing more guys take ownership on that. You're seeing the Spartan Dog for Life shirts and hoodies going out, and it's just created a groundswell. So kind of what's your thoughts kind of maybe catching up with your guys from college more, some of the guys that you haven't met and now you've met because of the Zooms and how social media has kind of allowed that, along with Mel Tucker?
I love it. I love that more of my guys are involved with it, that are embracing it. us old heads, man, it's hard to get us out of our comfort zone, right? Like it's hard to get us out of our comfort zone, and if we got to start communicating with people that we haven't communicated with in years, or meeting new people, that's not something we're comfortable with doing. But I'm happy to see that we have moved in the right direction of doing that, because really for us, it's about bridging the gaps between the playing careers. It's easy to stick with your own little era of playing football and just connect with those guys. But it's important, if we're going to move the program forward, that we as older guys embrace these younger guys, support them and support what they're doing, not just when things are going good, also in the tough times. We still need to be visible and having that flag out there waving. Now, for me, it was an easy adjustment because I'm still involved, right? I'm still involved, and, Coach D, on several occasions have had me speak to the team prior to a game. I always come and see them when they come out here on the East Coast, whether it's at Rutgers or whether it's down at Maryland. And every time I've gone to see them, Coach D would have me in the locker room talking to the guys. So I've just over the years, I've met some of the younger guys, the Darian Harrises and the Jarrell Worthies and all these guys that have played under Coach D'Antonio. The one era that I feel like we don't have the connection that is strong enough, or it's getting stronger, I should say. It's certainly getting stronger, is the John L. Smith era. And that's the era that we need to start bringing in and embracing. There are some of those guys that are active and around, but I feel like there are a lot more of those guys out there that we can certainly bridge those gaps. Mm-hmm. That's sort of the only era where I feel like man, there are players there, but I still don't even recognize the names. And I watch this team every year. I watch this team every year. But if you don't see guys periodically, or they don't get in chat rooms or what have you with us, then sometimes you forget, and you got to be reminded that these guys are playing. And that's what's been great about the Facebook chat rooms, that guys have been active in doing that. The pandemic helped us because we had several different Zoom-type meetings during that time that I was real happy to see that guys got involved. And that's really what it's about, right? It's about being involved and staying involved and letting these high school kids know that we have a strong alumni background that will support this new generation of Spartan football, and East Lansing is still the place to be. It's still the place to be. So we just need to continue to do that.
Yeah, and definitely I was at the spring game along with Justin, and we were actually around a few of the recruits, and a lot of them actually really noticed, Plaxico Burris was on the thing. On the field, they saw Mil Coleman, they saw all these guys, and they were like, wow, these guys still want to be here. Or Tony Lippett was down there, and that meant a lot to them. So definitely tell all of the ex-guys that, they do appreciate you guys and that it does matter to them when they see you present.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Last two things before we let you go and catch this fourth quarter of the Sixers game. I got to talk about the Philly angle. For even the listeners out there that don't know, I'm a Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, Flyers guy since birth. My dad's from Philly. Those have been my teams my whole life.
There you go.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Since I was just born in 1998, my experience with the number 58 is mostly Trent Cole with his archery celebration after the sack. But I know all about Ike's time there. So I'm just gonna let you speak a little bit on kind of just what your role has been in the city. I know you're on 94 WHIP. You got the afternoon show with John Marks. I've been listening to that for a while. So just what's your thoughts on Philly? I know you've been a resident for over 2 decades now. Just talk about the city, talk about the teams, talk about what you do.
Well, listen, man, you being from here, you know that once you get this city in your veins, in your DNA, it's hard to get it out. So, like you said, I've been here for over 2 decades now. My kids have pretty much been raised here. I spent 2 years in Atlanta, but even in those 2 years in Atlanta, I was back and forth here half the time. So I pretty much have been here for 23 years now, and it's home. It's home, and it's funny because growing up at Michigan State and in my early adult years, and sort of becoming a man there, that helped prepare me to be able to survive out here in Philadelphia. And so being out here and really because I'm talking about I don't have family out here. So, you know, for me to want to be out here, well, I don't necessarily have family out here. That means this place has become my family, right? So, I mean, and that's what it has become for me and my wife and kids out here. And by the way, my wife is a Michigan State alumni as well. We were there at Michigan State together. So, and she's from Detroit, so both of us have decided to stay out here and be out here. Well, I guess it would have to be both of us. We wouldn't do it separately. So, yeah, that's just in case people are listening, they're like, duh, I guess both of you are out there. Yes, that's but yes, anyway, there was never a doubt in my mind that once I retired playing where I was going to raise my family, and that was here. And this fan base, this city, this area has embraced me. They've helped me grow in this profession by being patient, by being offering constructive criticism and wanting to support. And I have people that I tell you, you know, Justin talked about, you know, how young he is and when he was born and his first sort of introduction into Eagles football. It's funny. I get that a lot now. Don't worry. I get that a lot with my listeners.
Right.
And so I understand that. But what I'm proud of is I've almost gotten a second life basically here in this profession, and I've been introduced to a whole new generation of Eagles fans that didn't necessarily get to see me play, so that allows me to embellish how good I was when I played, when I talk about myself. But I get so much support in doing this sports talk radio that it really has become like my family. And you guys do this, and if you know you do it as frequently as I've done it, 5 days a week, and we're talking about 13 years now that I've been doing this. I've helped people. I've helped introduce and educate people on sports in this town, and we, in the older generation, that lived and died with these sports teams forever, decades before I came here. Man, they have helped me tremendously understanding the importance of these teams to them. And once you get that, man, it is so. And I'm a passionate person by nature, and I think that's why I've connected with this fan base, because we all wear our emotions on our sleeves, and once we love hard, right? We love with passion, and I've been able to embrace that through being an athlete here and now being a sports talk show guy in here in this city. And believe it or not, Corey, Justin will tell you, sports talk radio in this town is significant. It means something.
Right.
It is a big deal, and to get accepted and to be doing it as long as I've been doing it, I never forget how fortunate I am, and I know why it's been that way. And it's because of the people that I get to talk to every day.
For sure. Last thing, for sure, is I got to ask, for my own selfish reasons, can you tell me your thoughts on the state of the Eagles right now? I know there's a lot of narratives out there with like front office dysfunction. And then cap it off with, do you think Jalen Hurts is the answer moving forward?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm actually feeling better about the team. I think the more we get to hear from, Nick Sirianni, his coaching staff, the more we get familiar with the players that are on the roster now. And quite frankly, it helps us get over losing the Super Bowl winning head coach and Carson Wentz, who we assume was going to be our franchise quarterback for the next decade or so. That's not easy to sort of move past, right? And so it has taken a little bit of time, but I think the fan base, including myself, I think we are finally ready to go ahead and get on board and embrace this team and support them. So I feel like they got a very good chance of things fall their way they can win 8-9 games.
For sure.
You know, and I know there are a lot of people that feel like they may be able to win 10 or 11 games. I want to keep moderate expectations and just allow them to exceed the expectations versus not meeting the expectations. So, but I think it's going to be a fun year. Anytime you get something new, you don't know what to expect. So we can sort of suspend all doubt and just go with the flow and be happy that way. And then with Jalen Hurts, that's one of the big question marks that we're going to find out. You know, I think there are some qualities and traits that he certainly has that will allow him to be successful in this league. But the one thing about this league is that, particularly at that position, is really for every position, but particularly at that position, because it's such a magnifying glass on it, it's about consistency. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not having a good game one week and then playing average or below average for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks again, having a good game against a bad team. And I'm not saying that's what he's done. I'm just saying that's what he's going to have to prove over 17 weeks. Right. You know, can he be consistent, or can he at least show that he's gotten better from week 1 to week 4 to week 8 to week 12 to week 16 and finish the season out? And then we're going to have to look at the results. Look at his results. How well did the pieces do around him? And then I think they're going to decide whether or not this is a guy that we can go in and move forward with in 2022. Right. Long term, we got a long way to go before we know he's the quarterback for the long term.
For sure.
But I'm excited to see him this year, see what he can do. I think there is some potential there, but a lot of it's going to have to do with his coaching staff and how well they are able to help develop him and focus on some things he doesn't do well, and get him to stay away from those areas and accentuate the things he does well. So the long answer to your question is, I do think he has a chance. I really do. Just to be honest with you, I'm not going to tell you he's going to be great or he's not going to be good. I think there is a realistic chance that he can be the starting quarterback moving forward. But a lot of it's going to have to do with how much he grows this year. Because really at the end of the year, the Eagles going to say, with the options on the table, is there a better option?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like, we know he has potential and talent, but is there an opportunity to get better, whether it's through a trade somewhere or whether it's through the draft, moving up in the draft to get somebody.
Right.
And that's what this business is about. You got to update your resume, man. You got to update your resume.
For sure. Yeah, I think he'll definitely get his fair share of chances to prove if he's consistent or not, because Joe Flacco sure as hell isn't going to be taking his job. And then the other thing that Howie did a good job of is he situated themselves with capital for future years if Hurts isn't the answer with those 3 first-round picks. And I think them also getting a first-round pick that can actually impact in year 1 should also help judge Jalen Hurts a little bit. So I like what they did this offseason. They didn't have a lot of cap. They got Jonathan Gannon some pieces, like the Minnesota additions. I think it's going to be a very solid we're going to get a good barometer here of what they have going into 22 when they have cap space. So it's a fun time, interesting time for sure. But
I do think people are going to be excited about watching Devontae this year.
For sure.
So I think people are certainly excited about that.
For sure. Yeah. My prediction is they scrape into the NFC East playoffs because they have a good schedule, and people are kind of underrating what they have. When you have a lot of older veterans, I think that helps, and they're all in a stage where they can still contribute. Like, Brandon Graham is not falling off a cliff with his production anytime soon. And like, these guys on the offensive line, they're still as solid as they come if they're healthy. So I like it. I think they can be successful this year. But Ike, thank you so much for your time. It's great having you on as a Philly fan, but also just as someone that appreciates the greatness Michigan State has had. And we'll let you go ahead and catch this Philly game. Hopefully Ben Simmons gets that triple-double. Can't lie, I've been watching it out of the corner of my eye. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, man, no problem. Thanks for having me. And if you ever need me again in the future, don't hesitate to give me a call and always give me a chance. I love having the opportunity to talk about Michigan State and my Spartans. So you know how I am. Go green. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first break of the day, and we'll be right back with some mailbag questions.
Of purpose, a higher calling, essential to our children's future. We call it our passion at Dean Transportation. We are a family, hardworking folks who for more than 60 years have connected children to learning, schools to our communities, and you to a better career, pioneering the best in health and safety standards because it's simply what we do, because safe student transportation has always been essential. Dean is now hiring community-focused individuals for immediate school bus driver, attendant, and mechanic positions for local schools throughout mid-Michigan. To learn more, visit jobs@dean.com/Lansing. Experienced applicants will receive up to a $750 sign-on bonus. For individuals with no prior experience, Dean will pay you to train. Positions may also allow you to start and stop work from local parking locations or your home throughout mid-Michigan. If you're looking to make the community a better place, we'll put you in the driver's seat. Join the Dean Transportation family today at jobs@dean.com/Lansing.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. California Governor Gavin Newsom is expressing his shock after a mass shooting in San Jose that left 8 people dead.
What the hell's going on in the United States of America? What the hell's wrong with us? And when are we going to come to grips with this?
At least 8 people are dead after a suspect opened fire today at a city transportation light rail yard. Police say the suspect is an employee of the city transportation agency, and police suspect he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. President Biden is urging Congress to take action to stop gun violence. The president said he again has the solemn duty of ordering flags to be lowered at half staff, adding he's already done so several other times for mass shootings. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow Daybell are making their first court appearances since they were indicted on several murder charges. Yesterday, prosecutors announced that both the husband and wife would face charges in connection with the murders of Vallow's 2 children, Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is being accused of breaking the law by one Democratic Congresswoman. Lisa Taylor has more.
Representative Nydia Velasquez of New York chairs the House Small Business Committee.
Without her at the table, this committee cannot properly fulfill our oversight responsibilities to American taxpayers nor the nation's entrepreneurial community.
Yellen didn't show up for a hearing today, and Velasquez said Yellen showed complete disregard for the law. The stimulus bill passed late last year requires Yellen to testify before lawmakers on how aid is being used to help small businesses reeling from the pandemic. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The mother whose son was shot and killed in 2014 by a police officer is asking the Ohio Supreme Court to block his attempt of being reinstated. Tamir Rice was 12 years old when former officer Timothy Lohman fatally shot him. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Boyne Golf presents Michigan's Magnificent 10. 10 extraordinary courses set among 3 incredible resorts with plenty of wide open spaces where the extra long days let you play and play and play. And when you're done, a variety of amenities and charming towns await. The golf's so varied, the accommodations so welcoming, each visit's a new experience. So visit BoyneGolf.com to plan your time here. That's BoyneGolf.com.
Thinking of a new air conditioning unit for your home? Hi, Peggy Doty with Doty Mechanical. A new Carrier high-efficiency AC unit will lower your energy usage and increase your home comfort. Current Carrier Cool Cash offers and available utility rebates mean your savings have never been better.
Call Doty Mechanical today at 327-7777 or visit us at DotyMechanical.com for your free estimate. For heating and cooling, the names to know, Doty Mechanical and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
The Spartan Beat.
If you don't compete, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Spotlight Radio Network.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us again after the break. To now, we're going to jump into some mailbag questions, which we're doing for the first time. And we'll just go ahead and start running through some of these questions from the Twitter replies. First up, somebody asked, I saw Brandon Baldwin didn't enroll with the other transfers. Is he coming this summer? Corey, you can go ahead and just talk about how he's not a transfer technically. Yeah,
he's not a transfer. He's a JUCO, so he's going to finish out his school year there, and he'll probably arrive in about a week or so with the rest of the high school recruits.
Yeah. So since he's technically part of the 2021 class, he can kind of be looked at as kind of in that group of the actual high school recruits and be subjected to that timeline, basically. That's kind of the answer there. Which running backs are we recruiting the hardest? Corey, you want to break down the philosophy there that Coach Fiegler has?
Yeah, so Michigan State's got a pretty deep running back room right now with the additions of Kenneth Walker, Harold Joyner, who just showed up, Eli Collins, Jordan Simmons, who's also had a great first year, and a handful of others. So he's kind of going for more of a swing for the fences approach as far as it goes with the recruiting with the high school players. Damari Alston, 4-star out of Georgia, that's kind of maybe the name you look at. That if he gets them, that's great. If he doesn't, they could probably just address it in the transfer portal because it's an easy way. That's kind of changed the game, and you don't necessarily need a starter because you probably run 4 or 5 deep there pretty easily, even next year, the year after. A name that's kind of interesting that's come up, though, is Christian Stokes from Harper Woods. He'll be taking an unofficial visit June 10th, and on that unofficial visit, he's going to work out for Coach Piegler and a couple of the other coaches. So he's a kid, I think he's better than his ranking, and I think he's a good tester. So I think he's someone that could potentially emerge if that visit goes well as the guy that could be the running back in the class.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense with how accessible the portal is. But at the same time, they're not just simply relying on the portal. Their first priority is still to land a really good high school running back. So kind of the best of both worlds. They're prioritizing high school first, but they won't just take anyone just because they're a high school kid. Then another question here is, what do you think Izzo's biggest misstep was that led to the 2020 season? I think a lot of it had to do with there not being a normal offseason, and then when MSU kind of started to get going, there was that COVID pause, but that is not all of where the issues lie. One of the things that I wish they would have been able to successfully accomplish is bringing in a point guard in the last offseason, like they did this season with Ty Walker. I know that was a priority because of how last offseason went, for sure. The thing was, though, that they were in heavy pursuit of Kareem Mane. They also went after Carleek Jones. I believe there was another high school transfer as well. So it's not like they didn't try. They just weren't exactly successful. So I wouldn't call it a misstep, but I would say that that was a downfall of what happened. So if they would have successfully landed a point guard that could facilitate, as opposed to Rocket Watts playing that position as someone that shot 25% from the field, was hesitant from contact at the hoop, spent a lot of time dribbling the air out of the ball, not necessarily facilitating, and you replace that with someone that's a natural point guard, I think it helps at least get a couple more wins, if not 4 or 5. And suddenly you're looking at a much higher seed. You're looking at maybe a different kind of run in the tournament. I don't think the team could have made the Final Four regardless of one change in the previous offseason. But I do think that was one of the bigger ones. Corey, do you have anything you want to add on that topic, or is that pretty much?
Yeah, and I think, too, COVID plays a role.
Yeah.
The team, it was kind of odd because when the season started, the team looked great. They were moving the ball well. They were playing good defense. And you're like, oh, this is going to be a really exciting year. Mm-hmm. And then the COVID stuff hit, and then they looked like probably the worst team I can ever remember seeing.
Yeah. And then we have another question here that says, if MSU were to have a turnover prize, like a turnover chain that the University of Miami has, what would you make it? So for me, as much as I loved Mike Valenti's idea of the turnover Lambo, that obviously is an answer that's already been taken. So I will go with something a little more on theme with Michigan State, and I would say a turnover sword.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's your okay, yeah. So our answer is a turnover sword, where they can wield that right after they come in with some sort of interception or fumble recovery, post up on the bench, have the social media department take a picture of that, and kind of use that as a recruiting tool. That's what we would say there. Let's see. What are the chances of Izzo adding another transfer? This one I can say with pretty decent confidence that that's not going to be happening. There were some. Originally, the plan was a few months ago that they were still going to add a second transfer beyond Tyson Walker, but the issue was there was not a lot of quality, and they also were unsure whether they wanted a small forward type of wing, or if they wanted a pure center that could rebound, kind of like a John Harrer type. But with no attrition happening in the front court, really, they kind of didn't see the need at center. And at small forward, there wasn't really that kind of a guy that's like the 3-and-D that you really need. And at this point, do you want to just take anybody just because you have a spot and take away minutes from Pierre Brooks, Max Christie, and these perimeter scorers? Or do you just want to let them play, also have Gabe Brown play some of that natural 3-and-D position that he plays? I would still like to see them be aggressive in the portal, and maybe if there's a big name that kind of goes out there, go after him, but there's not a lot in the portal, and I know they feel that way for sure. So I would say the answer is very unlikely. Let's see. If you could add any restaurant or bar to Grand River, what would it be and what is it replacing? I know I have one. Corey, do you have one on the top of your mind? That
No, I don't have one on the top,
okay.
But I'll let you get that one.
So I was in Los Angeles about 2 years ago, and there was this place called Dave's Hot Chicken. At the time, they only had 3 locations. I read a few months ago that they were expanding to the Midwest, with Michigan being one of the states. And they have about 30 locations they'll be opening up in Michigan, Ohio, and Illinois. So I don't know if they're opening in the Lansing area. Definitely don't know about if it's at Grand River. But that's kind of a realistic chain that's sort of starting to expand in the region. So that's kind of a half-realistic answer. But Dave's Hot Chicken, best Nashville chicken I've ever had. If they were to open on Grand River, I'd be thrilled. And it says, what is it replacing? Honestly, it can replace anything on Grand River except, I'd say, Barrio, Hopcat, Fieldhouse, and Lujas. Anything other than that, I'm okay with getting replaced. Let's see. Another question that we have here. Could you talk about linebacker recruiting and how realistic is the recruitment of Wesley Bisonte? Corey, you want to talk a little bit about how we don't know much about linebacker recruiting?
Yeah, that's by far, you guys aren't the only ones. It's by far the foggiest area. Sebastian Cheeks from Illinois, they just offered him recently. I know they're really trying to get him up in June for an official visit, so I guess that's a name. As far as Wesley, he's always been somebody that I had to see him get on campus before I would take it seriously, because I don't ever really see him talk about Michigan State. So he had to me, if he gets up here, then we can talk about him. Until then, he's not a realistic option in my mind.
Yeah, I think.
And then, I mean, you run, I think some things, and it's hard to maybe adjust as fans. We run a 2 linebacker set now. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you need to bring in a lot of linebackers. You got 3 in the portal and 3 in 21. So that's 6. I mean, so that it's easy to replace depth at the position well, I guess, is the answer for
right.
that.
And, plus with how many bodies that they were able to pick up this offseason in the portal, it kind of just shows, like, the quality is there, and they only have a few amount of positions to play them at. So that's not a position that they kind of need to stack up through the high school ranks, because as this offseason just showed you, you can go ahead and easily get quality through the portal there. And Atavion Brown, if he doesn't become the edge rusher and he uses his athleticism in a more prototypical way, that's a guy that has years of eligibility. Yeah. So and then with Carson Castile, they genuinely feel like they found a diamond in the rough there. Even Hank Pepper was all-state first team as a linebacker, even though I know he's a 5-star long snapper. His highlight tape is wildly impressive. So they have some young guys there, and they can always turn to the portal there, and maybe they'll be taking quite a few guys in 2023 to make up for it. So, but to answer your question, that's a question we also would like answered for ourselves. But no, actually, I think that they shouldn't be too bad. They're down the line over the next few years. But yeah, it would be nice to have some more names here. Justin, how do you feel about Little Caesars Pizza? Now, I don't know. I don't want to get Little Caesars' legal department suing me for defamation or anything, but I would honestly eat the box that the Little Caesars pizza is packaged in before I would eat the actual Little Caesars. Frankly, you could glue like 7 or 8 sheets of paper together and like put some pepperonis on it, put it in the oven and feed it to me, and I would think I'm eating the exact same thing regardless. It's frankly just not a good investment. You could light money on fire and it would be a better use of $5.30. I also feel like a lot of the reason it gets praised is that people think, well, what food can you get better for $5.30? Well, I would have 3 McChicken sandwiches and a medium fry before that. And honestly, I would just eat anything for $5. I wouldn't even eat Little Caesars if they gave me $5.30.
You got the $5 biggie bag at Wendy's, that much better option.
Right.
That's a lot of food for $5.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know if I was clear or not, but there's nothing I would rather eat less than a Little Caesars pizza. Let's see. Are there any other? We have. Yeah, so pretty much that covers what we had for most of the mailbag questions. We'll definitely do this again in the near future. Let us know if you have any more recruiting questions at that point. But June should be a fun month with the official visits finally starting. Tons of guys scheduling unofficial visits too by the day. A lot of them for camps. There's a lot of high quality prospects too that are coming on these unofficial visits, like down the road. Like obviously we know the 2022 guys like Christian Stokes, who's like a top 12 player in the state, who's coming in. We talked about him last week, but I think Deion Walker scheduled after our last episode, so that was somebody we didn't.
June 2nd for Deion, and he's going to hold on to officials, is what he told me.
Right.
So definitely a name to keep an eye on.
So Michigan State has a chance to make an impression there to hopefully maybe get an official later in the year. We have Jonathan Slack, who we talked about last week, and then Elliott Washington we talked about last week. Like these guys are highly ranked kids in 2023. Caden McDonald, I don't know if he's actually finalized that June 12th date, but he told you that Ron Burton and him were aiming for that. He's a kid that's top 100, maybe top 120. A big kid out of Georgia, already has an in-state offer from the Bulldogs. Just another quality kid there. On June 13th, which is a camp date, Michigan State has Dylan Senda participating in the camp, and then he has his unofficial visit the very next day, so you can see he has a lot of interest there. He's a highly rated offensive center in next year's class. We have Andrew DePape, defensive end. He's a top 100 kid. He's a 2023 4-star. We even have a 2024 DB, Jacob Oden, who's camping July 25th. He's a kid that has 9 D1 offers, I want to say, and he's a 2024 kid out of Harper Woods. He has a Michigan State offer. I believe he has a couple of SEC offers too from Ole Miss and whatnot. But the interest is there from kids to come up here to see what Michigan State's all about, to meet the new staff. And this doesn't even count the guys like Jaden Mangum and Dylan Tatum, who have visits that they are going to be making that just don't have dates attached to them yet. Things of that nature. So lots of quality kids here in the next month or so that we'll be able to cover. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to Spartan Tailgate. That's where we're going to be covering every single development regarding these visits. We also have Jaden Shute that actually scheduled his official visit for mid-June, and that's a top target for basketball. He's a 6'6" kid that can score. He played for the same Illinois Wolves AAU squad that Max Christie did, different age group though. He's a kid that they've handled his recruitment seamlessly after Dane Fife left, as Doug Wojcik and Dwayne Stevens has become like the 2 guys that are recruiting him. So yeah, lots of football developments here in the next month. lots of even basketball recruiting might start to finally pick up once they can get kids on campus. So definitely Spartan Tailgate's the place to be. If you are not subscribed, then you should be, because I don't know why you wouldn't be. And yeah, so thanks for checking us out once again. And go ahead and check us out on Spartan Tailgate. Check us out on Twitter. And thanks again for listening, guys. And until next week, I'm Justin. That's Corey. And thanks for tuning in.